Baroness de Souza will take some questions.
I understand that MPs each have a handful of research assistants. Do the Lords also have access to such help?
No, they don't. It's a very good question, which is why they rely so heavily on, that sort of body of NGOs. Let me give you just one example of that. There's a person in the House of Lords called Lord Ramsbottom, Rambo to us for obvious reasons again, who was, he had an army career, and then he was Her Majesty's Chief Inspector of Prisons, okay? And in the years that I've known him, he has consistently attack the government on all aspects of prison policy, whether that be sentencing women in prison, rehabilitation, youth justice, sentencing, whatever it might be. He's a world-renowned expert on it, but the way in which he gets his information, that he is in touch almost on a daily basis with all those organisations which have a concern about those aspects of sentencing and prison and youth justice, and he gets his information from them, I mean, all the time. And he is able to bring forward amendments which they themselves have said, for instance, about prison crowding and indeed what the impact is. And I was going to say he's on a roll at the moment. He's on a bit of a roll because he is so concerned about what is happening in our prisons, as indeed we all are. But that is an example where he would be unable to do that work unless he were in touch with those non-governmental organisation and other bodies, because we do get a daily allowance, but it doesn't cover researchers. I mean, okay, if your researchers wanted to work for sort of, 2 and 2pence a day, then it would, but it doesn't if they want to work for a little bit more than that, i.e. the living wage. Okay.
A question at the back?
When I go back to U3A tonight, and I say we had a wonderful talk, in which Baroness de Souza said that she would like to widen participation and discussion with the House of Lords. What should I say to our U3A as to what we should do to make that extra participation a reality?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. There are a number of ways in which one can do this. I mean, as I've already explained, the special non-governmental organisations, on whatever it might be, on ageing, on welfare, on animal welfare, whatever it might be, are in touch with those peers who have an interest. What we've done is to build a searchable database on the internet, which means that you can actually look up the subjects that you're interested in and then see which peers have contributed in what way and on what side, and then you can go and look at what speeches, you can have a direct link to see what speeches they've made and indeed what they've said. And what I've always sort of said, and particularly when I talk to sort of schools as well, is that they should contact those individual peers if they have a sort of burning issue, whether it be sort of, dustbins in the road or road safety or whatever it might be, and talk to them. Now, having said that, there are very very extremely hardworking and a sort of alive peers in the House. There's some who are not. I mean, they're alive, but... sometimes only just, I tell you. Okay. So I think that's a really good idea to go and look and see what they've actually said, how recently they've been involved in debates, and then contact them. There's an awful lot of information on the internet about what the House of Lords is doing. It also gives a list of what is coming up in terms of debates, oral questions, select committees, of which any public can go in and sit on select committees and hear what they say. They can't intervene in select committees, but unless they are a witness, but they can listen to what's going on. Or most importantly, but actually in many ways more difficult, is to follow through legislation. When bills come up, we've had a bill on investigatory powers of the government, the so-called Snoopers Charter, but it contained a huge number of different, it was a bit like a Christmas tree bill, everything was stuffed into it. So it needs to be looked at, but the library in the House of Lords makes summaries, as does the research department, of all the bills that are coming up and what they contain. It requires a little bit of work on your part, but it is there if you wish to use it, and I really wish you would. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony Garrick from Melbourne and District in South Cambridgeshire. I thank you for this address today. It's been excellent, and I can report back to our groups as well. The two latest groups that have just started up are current affairs, and I have to say these are vehicles for not just a talking shop, but for matters of concern to our members. And I'm very pleased to have this opportunity to go back and report that we do have another outlet for our discussions, and that our members can have a voice, not just to their MPs, but to the House of Lords. So thank you very much.
Yes, I mean, that's interesting you say that, because, I mean, U3A is not a body as such. It is a lot of separate bodies, and each of you will have different concerns. Each of the groupings will have different concerns and also different kinds of expertise. So it is worth choosing what you want to pursue. And, you know, you can express a view, but actually, I think, fine. But what I think is really important, remember too that both MPs and peers get masses of emails and correspondence in the post. What is really useful is to try to build a relationship with an individual peer who seems sympathetic to your particular concern, because then they will come back to you, so it'll be a proper dialogue. And also to be able to help in perhaps drafting points which are based on local knowledge about what is happening or what is likely to happen with legislation that the government is bringing in, which can be used as sort of exemplary material when we are having debates. So again, it does require a bit of work. And I mean, just views, there's lots of views about, but actual tangible drafting of amendments and building a relationship, I think, is very helpful.
May I just interrupt you for a moment? You may like to know that through Barbara Lewis's awareness campaign, we have recently been approached by Lord Fuchs, a Scottish peer, who wishes to talk to us.
You make the extremely important point about the level of expertise of many of the peers. Very specialist in many instances. How, if we were to have an elected chamber, would we ensure that we kept that level of expertise? I suspect there are quite a few crossbenchers in particular who don't want to go out on the stomp at election time knocking on doors. Would we have to sacrifice that expertise, or is there a way in which we could retain it?
I mean, that's such a huge question, because it is basically about what people think reform is in the House of Lords, whether you have an elected or an unelected House. And it's something I feel really passionately about. And I could probably go on for about 3 hours, but I suspect you wouldn't wish me to do that. I think you're right. I think that if you had an elected House, you would introduce, people sort of say, well, that must be democratic to have an elected House. It would introduce, first of all, an element of competition with the House of Commons. And actually, it's very interesting that there have been so many reform bills, but the last one failed, not in the House of Lords, but in the House of Commons, because I think that the Commons recognised that if they had a body which was similarly elected, that it would have that degree of democratic legitimacy, which would mean that, you know, it wouldn't be theirs exclusively. And, you know, you can imagine the kind of difficulties that would occur at the constituency level, where there would be, you know, maybe sort of one MP who didn't want to go to war, but, you know, a peer did want to go to war. And how would you square that? And indeed, how would you, because of our curious constitution, you know, it's grown up over years, it's not written, it's a shreds and patches constitution, but it kind of works. But what it means is that it is very, very finely balanced. We don't have a mechanism to determine how to deal with conflict between the two houses. So there could be, and that has happened in the past in other parliaments around the world, that there could be stalemate. I mean, look at what has happened in the American Senate and Congress. There could be stalemate. I think your question about expertise, I think you're absolutely right that, you know, most of us who are extremely aged would not go out on the stumps and start sort of, and nor would we be very successful at it, I suspect. I do think that expertise is very important. I think that, however, there ought to be a much more rational approach to expertise, whereby the Independent Appointments Commission should be responsible for the appointment of all peers, that the patronage should be taken away from the Prime Minister of the day, which will be a very hard thing to do because most Prime Ministers like having that power. And it should be an independent body which is mindful of the kind of gaps in expertise that exist in the House, which is adamant that anyone appointed to the House should be a working peer, not just someone who swans in and out, like one recent peer, who shall be nameless, but you may recognise, who sort of said, "They keep asking me to vote." You know, well, that's what it's about, mate. You know? So I think you might be able to have a much more effective system of appointment which would cover expertise and perhaps be a little less partisan. I mean, I think one of the things that has actually caused a scandal, it has to me, and I think it does to you probably as well. We're having a debate on this on the 5th of December. I mean, there are people in the House of Lords who have given massive sums to the governing party who can't actually speak English. But they're wealthy enough to be able to employ secretaries who write it out for them, phonetically sometimes, so that they can read their speeches. I mean, I think that is a scandal. You know, I really think that is a scandal. It is taking patronage too far. And, you know, up until sort of last month, when I was Lord Speaker, my job was to promote and protect the reputation of the House. I couldn't say any of this. It's quite nice to do so, I have to tell you. But I mean, I think that what is very interesting is that it seems to me that what we've achieved, and I've been going on and on and on about this, I mean, so boringly, what we've actually achieved is a degree of consensus inside the House of Lords itself, that this is unacceptable. And what we're doing is going to ask the government on Monday, the 5th of December, to set up a select committee in order to come up with the mechanisms whereby we can achieve a reduction in numbers and a proper appointments procedure by the time of the next general election. But you know, watch this space, because things move very slowly. Yeah.
We can have one more question, and we'd like a lady, please. Thank you.
Thank you. In fact, you've just answered very fully the two questions I was going to ask. But it is, I think, one thing has been nagging me while people have been talking. The first question you asked was, what contributions should a citizen make in turbulent times? This is a question I have been asking myself since Brexit. You said, too, that you would like to hear what U3A had to say, U3A's voice. My problem here is that we don't, I think, speak with one voice, and how political we should be. Maybe I could just leave that with you. Thank you.
Well, yes, I mean, gosh, you know, when I talked about sort of so-called silver power, I mean, okay, the Trust is a charity, so it can't do political lobbying. So it's an educational one. But the power of U3A as a body, with, you know, getting up to 500,000 numbers, is quite considerable. And it may be, in due course, you never know, that there might be a fairly gentle statement to which everyone could sign up to, which would be, I mean, you know, never, sorry.
We could never agree.
Never say never. No. Okay.
Okay. Maybe. Well, I think that was incredibly interesting and something quite different for us, but something to take back to our U3As. So thank you so much. Thank you for coming. Are you going to be able to manage these? Now to really our title of today. We have with us today 8 members of Churchdown U3A, which is our 1000th U3A. So I would like to, in a moment, invite them up on the stage, and Eric is going to present their certificate to them. I haven't seen it, I hope it's around. Last week, I attended Churchdown's monthly meeting because it is only 36 miles from where I live. And I was very impressed by the number of groups that they already have, to the extent that I quite fancied going there myself. Because they've got things that my U3A hasn't got. And it's only 36 miles, but there were a lot of roadworks, so maybe not. But it is lovely to go to a new U3A. It is absolutely inspiring, always. I always come away refreshed and feeling, wow, that was a wonderful afternoon. We wish them and every other new U3A the greatest success. And would you like to come up on the stage, please? Right, now a bit of culture. Actually, this was my idea because I felt it would be very nice to have something that is homegrown, something that is what we do. And so we asked Ursula Steiger, who I'm sure an awful lot of you know. She's our wonderful musical lady who does 2 summer schools every year and is absolutely full up every time. And so she has brought her choir from Canterbury, and they're going to sing 3 pieces. Now, where's she? Oh, there you are. Do you want to say them to me, and I'll repeat them if you like. The first one? The Brindisi drinking song. Is there a theme here? Tribute to Glenn Miller. Origin unknown. The third one is a Russian benediction. Orthodox benediction. So I think this will be a treat. So this is a third of the choir. Thank you so much. And your pianist has disappeared very quickly, but thank you. And thank you very much. And to my family, my children are here, and I just want to show them what U3A can do. And all those people are in their 90s, and you would never have believed. Sorry, I didn't mean it. Thank you. Thank you. Right, I'm hoping they're behaving because, you know.